Hey guys, good evening. I've come on a little bit later today. I've had quite a busy day with catching up with emails for an ongoing issue that we're having with the banks regarding our last website build. Um, you know, the normal day-to-day problems we have, I guess, in the world. So I've been catching up with some emails, doing a bit of designing on the computer for both me and Sam, and I've just been in the hot tub, not the hot tub, the sauna, and swimming with Dylan for an hour or so, just to alleviate him. It is a bit late. I think it's about 6:30 this evening, so it is a little bit later. It's a little bit nice and cooler actually, hence the reason why I've got a hoodie on. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of come on, and obviously now it's actually day 5 of this walking home video series, and today the title of today's talk is "This is School Now." We have a lot of the time we get people ask us, what about school? What about education for Dylan? And I think by now you kind of gathered where we kind of fit into that realm. And I always do smile because you know I wouldn't we kind of almost got it all figured out now. Dylan's kind of in a happy place where he is, and how he's getting to learn and things like that, because we've had to go through a process, all of us actually, myself included, have had to go through a process which is unlearning. We've unlearn everything. Previously we've had to unlearn, schooling for Dylan. I spent many years, obviously I went to school, I left school, but then I went back to college and university and stuff. And, for what I wanted to do in life, what I thought I wanted to do in life, which was forensics. And, after a while, I come out of that job, and I come out with, hence some of the reasons for my depression and PTSD really. So we've had to unlearn quite a lot of things, and how curriculum works, and how lots of the other kind of stuff works. We're taught to believe these things, aren't we? We're taught to believe that education only happens inside the four walls, under fluorescent lights, following someone else's script, because everything is scripted, isn't it? Everything is scripted, no matter what way you look at it. When you think lesson plans, let me go this way today. Lesson plans. Teachers sit out and write lesson plans out. So everything is scripted, and a lot of what we're taught, and a lot of what I wouldn't say a lot of what we're taught, but a lot of what goes on in education now isn't actually right anyway. There's a lot of hidden truths out there, especially when it comes to the history of things and things like that. So it's having to unlearn all of these different things, I think. But this this is our school. This is our school now. School is in the morning light or evening light, with the sun filtering as it usually is through the trees. It's the stillness of the walk. It's the bird songs. I know you can't hear the birds this evening. It's a little bit later on than I usually do, but it's listening to the bird songs. It's taken notice of the things that are growing in the forest, and the animals that are in the forest. The squirrels, the birds. It's the wild vegetation that's growing, the mushrooms, and everything. The smell of walking through here after it rained. Obviously it rained the other day, overnight, and walking through after the rain, it's the different smells and everything you pick up, or asking deep questions, while we walk. Obviously I talk quite deeply when we're walking and talking, and we do, that is kind of the gist of where we want to go, and the types of questions that we want to ask ourselves. You know, they are deep questions. Don't get me wrong. There's no kind of lightheartedness. They are deep questions, and because we've been rooted in, um, you know, in society, and we've been taught to think and act and feel in certain ways, you have to ask these deep questions. Is this really right? Is this really how I should act? Is this how I really should feel? Do I really need to ask permission for me to do something? You know, these are all really deep questions, and I think the deeper the question, the more time it takes to kind of get your head round and figure out why you're asking those questions as well. You know, you know that we haven't got a textbook to prepare us for this, and I guess this is kind of partly the reason why I'm doing this video series for people out there that may be interested in living this kind of lifestyle, or taking that jump toward living free, coming away from the systems, coming away from the norm. You know, it's just there's a lot of questions to ask, I know that, but you know, as you embark on this journey, you tend to answer one question, another question will come up. But because as you start to go through and you start to answer each question, and you start to understand why people are pulling away from the systems, that are pulling away from, you know, even friends and family, and you know, attachments and all of this, you understand a lot more. So the next question you ask, you kind of already on the way to answering that question, because deep down you pretty much almost know the answer. You know, this way of learning isn't any less, you know, it's just deeper, it's just alive, you know, asking these deep rooted questions when you're embarking on a journey like this. You know, and sometimes it may not be for everybody. It may not be for everybody. You know, there are, as I said in one of my previous videos, there are people out there that do love structure. They do love their routine. You know, they do, you know, they're, you know, my parents are one, you know, they sit and watch the news religiously to see what's going on in the world. Unbeknownst to them, they're being sucked into the negativity and the drama and the lies and the, what's the word? I can't think of a word now, but they're getting sucked into that toxic frequency. You know, they just think they're watching the news. And, you know, I say to my dad and my mum, you know, when do you ever see anything good on the news? It's not, because that's how it's programmed. It's programmed to be doom, gloom. It's made to make you feel bad, you know, because then they keep you in control. They keep you, needing or wanting something that you don't really need. You know, it's all propaganda. We are playing a game. We are playing a game, and the game is to get out. That is the game, to get out, to become free. And once you're free, you can look back and go, what the hell was I doing? What the hell was I doing for all of this time? Going along with certain narratives and you know, going with the systems, giving all my money over to corrupt, you know, governments and agencies and things like this. You know, why are you working your entire life pretty much just to spend the last couple of years living on pretty much a pittance? Because I can, you know, I can actually see, you know, further down the line, you know, you won't have long to live the rest of your life, so to speak, because you're going to be working up until pretty much the day you drop. You know, I know things are getting better. I know there is a lovely, bright future out there, but you've just got to see it for yourself. Come away from the drama, come away from the negativity, come away from all of that. Live outside of that with freedom. And once you live in that freedom, the world is yours to do with what you want to do. Whenever you want to do it, you've got the time, you've got the freedom to do whatever you want to do. And that is why we live this kind of life. You know, we're taught to believe in, you know, checklists, grades, timetables, You know, the race to be ahead. I mean, obviously, we've just gone through the GCSE results and things. You know, everybody's striving to get the best GCSE results, to do well, because we've been told that we need to do well. We need to get that good job. But why? Why do you need to do so well? Why do you need to get that good job? I tell you the reason why is because the people and powers that be need people put in place to keep the wheels of this ever churning life going the way they want you to live your life, because you're not living your life, you're living the life that they want you to live. I don't know whether you're picking that up yet in these talks. You know, they want you to live like this. They preach to you, get the good job. They preach to you, you need to do this, you need to do that. You know, and it's been installed in us, you know, and our parents, and it's been installed in them as well. You know, to get ahead, you need to do this and to need to do that. No, you absolutely don't. You know, when I was going through university, you know, going back, God, it's over 10 years now. You know, there were that, you know, you get in debt. You get in debt and you spend the rest, you know, you will spend a long time paying that debt off, if you ever pay it off, because you'll only start paying, you do only start paying it off if you pick up a job that earns a certain amount of money after you come out of university. But you know, you pay all of this money to get yourself in debt, and 9 times out of 10, you wouldn't even be able to get the job that you kind of tried to get in the first place, because now you're too overqualified and they'd rather take someone in that costs less to do the job that you would spent, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it may be, at university training for. So, you know, to me, it's absolutely pointless. But again, you know, you go through that system, don't you? You know, when you can be out in the open, doing whatever you want to do, that thing you've always wanted to do. You know, but, you know, we're taught that we need those things to get ahead, you know. But what if the child seems behind? Yeah, here's a topic for you. So what if the child thinks or seems that they're behind, but actually they're just becoming themselves, but at a totally different pace? You know, there are children that are behind others, but perhaps that, you know, they're going at their pace. And you know what? That's one thing this life does give you. You know, the way we live our lives is because Dylan is learning at his own pace. He hasn't got to, so I'm just going to switch arms. He hasn't got to go at the pace that everybody else is. You know, it's all one conform thing when you're in education, isn't it? You have to learn at the same pace. If you're behind, you need to catch up. Well, just because you're behind, it doesn't mean you're any less clever. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means you're going at your own pace that you want to go at, or that you can go at. You know, it's the whole educational kind of thing for me is flawed from the outset. You know, what if real education is about remembering our place in the world? You know, what if it's about remembering our place in the world, not climbing out of it? You know, when we travel, every moment becomes a lesson. You know, the new cultures, the new languages, the new landscapes, you know, they awaken something that no classroom ever could. You know, the amount of experiences Dylan's had since he's been home educated has been immense, you know, absolutely immense. But he wouldn't be doing these things in school. You know, even actually, I'll tell you what, even some of the school trips that Dylan was due to go on, they kept cancelling the school trips. You know, so he wasn't even getting that experience when he should have been getting that experience by going on these school trips, because they just kept cancelling them. So, you know, it's all of this is kind of, I'm just going to turn around and go the other way, actually. You know, all of this, it just builds up to kind of a lack of everything, really. You know, he's gaining something rare, and a chance to know himself without actually being measured. You know, we don't measure him on how well he's doing. We can see how well he's doing. We haven't got to measure it. We can see how well he's doing. You know, the compliments that we get about him. You know, the reviews that we get from the homeowners that we sit for. You know, they always mention Dylan and how wonderful he is, and how, you know, how proud they are of him, and of us and our lifestyle. You know, It's, you know, a chance to ask what lights them up, what lights us up, you know? That's the question. And the question, and then the answer would come from Dylan is, I get to do whatever I want when I want to do it. You know, whenever he wants to do it. You know, we're not bound by clocks, as we keep saying. There's no timelines. There's no clocks. Don't have to worry about any of that. We just get up and do whatever we want whenever we want to do it. So yes, this is school now. The forest, the ocean, the silence, the stars. You know, life itself is the teacher. And every day with it, we're invited to learn, you know, and it's not by force. It's not by force, but by wonder, wandering around the forest, wandering around the oceans, wandering around different locations and places and cities and, you know, looking at the buildings and everything. That is what calls us, and that is what helps us learn, you know, keep learning through life around you. You know, it's always teaching us. It's always teaching us. You've just got to be open to see that and open to learn that that is there to help us teach. You know, because if you don't fail at nothing, you don't learn at anything. You know, you don't. So that's it for today, guys. Um, just been a bit of a funny day, but hope some of that makes sense to you, and I hope you can start to see what we've kind of been saying all this time, or even start to pick up what we're trying to explain to you and help you on the direction of finding your own path, finding your own freedom. Okay, guys, well, that's it for me today. Love and light as always, and I will see you tomorrow for tomorrow's talk. Take care now.